Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions 7 days a week. Cindy's our reader today. Cindy, what do we have?
Our first question today is from Jacob Goodnight in Indianapolis, Indiana. When calibrating a studio camera with Nobe Omniscope, which scopes do you rely on most, and what specific targets are you looking to hit?
Jason?
They're all a little different. So the real trick is to start with a known set chip chart. And you basically just have to know how it's going to fit on there. The more recent versions of Nobe Omniscope actually have a chart checker. So if you have a known chart, you can actually just check your drifts. I think it does it automatically, and it works pretty well. But once you really get good at scopes, I'm sure Alex will show off his chip chart, and his shows a much cooler pattern than this one.
Alex?
If you're doing stuff live, you're going to need to have a demand chart to calibrate it properly. So if you're talking about calibration and making it accurate. Now, there's a lot of ways to do this without a demand chart as well. So if you just want to make something look good, get a frame that you and your DP and whoever else thinks is great, and then match all the cameras to that. And there's a variety of ways of doing that. You can take the chart that one of the things that we do is we'll take the chart that Jason showed, and we will just simply show that to the camera with the lighting and the look that we're looking for. And the most important thing typically for us is that the skin sits on the correct line on the vector scope. It's the one line that kind of goes towards the 10 o'clock. Skin sitting on there is pretty important. You can kind of do a lot of other things as you like, but that's the important thing there. If you want to truly calibrate the camera, that's what this chart is built for. And what happens is that these colors that go around here are not just random. They will actually draw a line through in the vector scope through all the points. And there'll be a straight line between each point. And that's what they're designed to do. And they're little dots. And so that's how people, when they need to calibrate the camera, when you say calibrate, if you want to make it look good, there's a lot of ways to do that. If you want to calibrate the camera with a vector scope, there's only one chart that I know of that does that. All the other charts will let you sync all your cameras later. They give you color information that you absolutely need. They're very, very useful. But if you're truly trying to calibrate it at a broadcast level, I don't know anybody that uses anything other than some version of the chart that I just showed you.
And as far as specific scopes, usually what I'll start with in Nobe Omniscope is the parade. So that way I'm seeing what are my exposures in all the 3 different channels. And then once I have my exposure where I want it to be from the foreground to the background, then I'll start to take a look at the vector scope and see, okay, where I'll usually draw the little window over like where a face would be, and then check against that skin tone line so that I can balance my shot with a known good shot that I really, really like the shading on. So sometimes I'll grab somebody from this panel and say, man, I really like their shot. I want mine to be more that way, and I kind of cheat and I make my waveforms look like theirs.
Yeah, well, and one of the things to look at there is if you are matching multiple cameras, the easiest way to do that is with LUTs. And if the camera doesn't have a LUT, you can put many of the different Blackmagic or AJA, Blackmagic primarily, all their little converter boxes, all the new ones will allow you to load a LUT into the converter box. So as you go through that box, you can actually add the LUT there. Now, of course, there's a LUT box which AJA makes, which is really nice, but it's like $2,000. These other ones are like less than $100. so they can, and you can add them to your GoPros, you can add them to your PTZs, you can add them to all the things, because one of the biggest problems you get into, what you need to do is have a chart. In this case, it doesn't have to be the chart I just showed. It can be any chart. You basically take the same image and you corner pin the image over top, that chart over top of the one you like, and then you go into Resolve and you match those until you put it on difference, and you match it until it turns black. And at that point, both of those cameras are the closer to black you get, those cameras are as close as they're ever going to be. Whether that's mixing and matching Panasonic and Sony and Blackmagic and GoPro and everything else. And we've had to do that where we have 3 or 4 different makes and lots of different lenses. We found the only way to really effectively get it together is using the LUTs.
Bill?
Yeah, I just also wanted to note that the simplest way back in the early days, even if you've downloaded a standard set of SMPTE color bars, nothing complicated. These other charts are incredibly important if you want to get into the technical details. But a simple set of color bars shown on a vector scope will reveal this pattern. And if you look at the corners where things hit, you will see a little target back there. That is a way to objectively know whether the signal coming out of the camera is correct in terms of scopes. And so you can see those little targets down there. Let me zoom into one of them, maybe one here up at the top. You'll see that angle hits directly in a box that's preset to be the deflection of that color properly. So you can pull up simple bars, go into a vector scope, and look at it and say, is the camera sending something that's non-standard? That's kind of, to me, the 101 version of simple color correcting a camera. There's way more beyond that, as you've been hearing, but that's kind of where most of us started early in our careers.
Next question.
This one is from me, Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. I'm trying to use the vMix module in Bitfocus Companion to make StreamDeck buttons on my Windows computer, and it won't connect. I've quit StreamDeck software, removed the Companion plugin, and still can't connect the vMix module. What should I do?
Jonas?
There's a couple things to note there. I have a little virtual StreamDeck here. And there's two ways that you can connect to Companion. You can do it, like you said, through the Companion software, where you drag through the StreamDeck software, where you drag in a Companion button. Or if I bring up my Companion GUI here, what's really important is that if you go to Settings, Surfaces, and you see Enable Direct Connection to StreamDecks. If you have this enabled, which you would have needed to have enabled to use the plugin before, you need to unenable that and then restart Companion, because only then it will connect to local StreamDecks. And then the other thing let's take a vMix one here and enable that so I can edit it, is you want to make sure that you have target host and TCP port enabled here. I think I heard you talk earlier about wanting to have Companion on your Mac as well. That also works with vMix since it's just talking over the network. The other thing that's important, if you go into vMix, you need to make sure that you have the web interface enabled. And if you want to have it work over the network, then that's also where you need to make sure that your firewall is open. vMix should open its settings any second now. If you go into the web controller here, you need to have this enabled. Important that you don't put the port from Companion in here, because the Companion port is a different one. And then down here, those are also two that you need to make sure that you have disabled. Enable enhanced security on web and TCP API, and restrict access to LAN only, and then same for the TCP API. In theory, you should be able to have those enabled, but we've seen it do false positives where it doesn't allow access over the LAN if something's wonky in your IP address setup that it doesn't understand. Those are the things to note there. One last note is if you have the latest StreamDeck Companion plugin, they now added a feature that I really like, that you can use the StreamDeck software on one system and connect to a Companion on another system. In the past, it always worked when Companion and the StreamDeck software is on the same system. Now, since you can go into this plugin config here, you can change it as well. So you could have Companion running on a Mac system and your StreamDeck software running on a Windows system, and they still talk to each other. That is all possible now.
Next question.
Next up is Bo Cordell in Charleston, South Carolina, USA, asking, favorite keyboards on the panel? Mine was the Nuphy Air 96, but I think the Keychron K5 Max has taken the top slot.
Jason.
I went way down this rabbit hole. Started with the Nuphy, and I liked it, and I switched out the keys, and I switched out the keycaps, and realized I hated that the 10 key didn't quite work for me. So then I ended up getting this one and switched it out so that it has all black keys. And this one is, I don't even remember, the Keychron Q6. And then I went back to the Apple keyboard. So there we go.
Jonas.
My favorite is this one, which isn't really a keyboard, but it's a KVM. It's a SIP-Speed Nano KVM. And it works as a keyboard, but remotely, which is my favorite type of keyboard.
Alex.
Can you repeat what that is?
It's the SIP-Speed Nano KVM.
Okay.
It's a KVM that's based
You
on
have my
a
undivided
RISC-V
attention. Yeah.
architecture, and it's tiny, and it shows you the IP address, and then you can just access it over a web browser.
Yeah. Well, that's really good.
See, you just made me buy another keyboard.
That's Jonas wins this one. The Nuphy is what I have. I have the 96 and I think the 70 something or other, 72 or whatever, and I am so happy with those keyboards. So I haven't tried the one that you're suggesting. I have had Keychrons in the past, so I think they're great. But I kind of got into the Nuphy thing, and now I'm just kind of stuck in there in that cycle.
Alexander.
The one I have is from Keychron, which I really like. I don't know if it's my favorite. I mean, I'm sure there's probably a better one out there that I'd like, and I haven't really experimented too much. Ended up with this one. This is the C2, so this is a wired keyboard because I hate wireless keyboards. I also have a KVM, so I need something wired. So this is the C2. Got it in black and white. It's got the red switches, so pretty clicky, but not the noisiest. So these are more on the quieter side, or the however that, but they still make noise. I mean, you can if I start typing, you can hear it. So it has a satisfying click, just not the noisiest. I went for something that was kind of a compromise between super noisy and clicky, and something that would be just, not have enough tactile feedback. So that's one that I ended up with. Haven't played with the Nuphies yet. I thought about ordering one. I just want to make sure I can find one. I didn't see one that had a full-size keyboard that was wired only. Maybe someone can correct me. It seemed like all of their ones were wireless. So I just want a full-size keyboard that's wired.
They're optional. So the one that I have the 96 and I think it's the 72. All of them have a switch on the back. So that you have either Bluetooth or you have a USB-C. You can look for them, or you can it has the little USB key that you can put in there, because I use it with the USB key because I'm connected to a KVM. So you can do the ones that I have. You can do all three, so you can have it be any way you want.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Nice. I don't really have a favorite because I have so many computers, and most of my favorite computers are laptops. So you got to kind of go with the computer that's there. I can tell you what I don't like in a keyboard. I like Logitech's okay. What I don't like in a keyboard is gaming keyboards that have RGB lighting. I do like lighted backlit keys. That's almost a requirement these days, because I have so many keyboards that I have to deal with on a daily basis, figuring out where the backslash key is, and the exclamation point key is, and the vertical pipe key, which always moves around from keyboard to keyboard, and you can't find them in the dark. And typically I was on stage a lot and tucked behind a wall somewhere where lighting is not good. So backlit keyboard is always essential. I hate RGB lit keyboards that constantly change the color behind all the keys, and that's just annoying. And I always set mine. I have a gaming laptop that has the RGB keys, and it took me a long time to find where I could just set it to white. And it would keep coming up all these different rainbow colors and patterns that were moving and distracting. I hate that.
Bill.
I had a period in my youth when I went through a bunch of keyboards and tried to find the perfect one. And I found keyboards that I really liked. But then I started shifting to more and more laptop use. And I found that if I adapted to the keyboard rather than trying to find the perfect keyboard that adapted to me, it made more sense for me. And a good example was yesterday I was on a train going from San Diego to Los Angeles and back. I opened my laptop, this same laptop that is my daily driver, and I was super productive. It was a lovely day wandering on the train down the coast and looking at the surfers and stuff like that. But nothing changed from my daily work. And it's been like 8 to 10 years that I've been on this exact same one. So there's no habit that I have that I miss when I'm away from my desk, and I don't have to drag a big honking keyboard that is my normal daily driver around. So I'm I'm a proponent of find one that you can live with and kind of just stick to that one. Yeah, I'm funny that way.
Well, Bo, you found a topic that we're pretty enthusiastic about, and as I sit here with more keyboards than I know what to do with, it's like, okay, I need to make another station and another dock so I can use another keyboard. Even with all that, I find myself looking at the one that you brought up and thinking to myself, wow, this is a great low-profile keyboard, but instead of having those sharp edges on the keys, they beveled them so that the key travels a little nicer. This is the K5 Max that Bo was talking about. I may have to check it out.
Yeah, I have one of those too.
They're jealous. We're got a big, exciting panel today, and we're here for your questions. So your voting is very important. Besides just asking the questions, you can also chat about the questions. All that happens in Makana. So if you're not in Makana, just go to officehours.global/join, and that's where you can ask, vote, and chat. Again, officehours.global/join if you want to join the fun. Next question.
Andre Delay in Berlin is asking, using a Magewell Ultraencode all-in-one on latest firmware. I want to stream RTMP H.265 to YouTube, but this only works if I use the YouTube-RTMP with login, not by custom RTMP without login. Any ideas? Why is this the case?
Jonas?
What my guess would be is H.265 is not supported by RTMP. It's supported by something called eRTMP, which stands for Enhanced RTMP. My guess is that the Magewell only switches to eRTMP if you select the YouTube-specific profile. But if you select custom RTMP, that it's still just doing RTMP. It's probably something that might be worth bringing up to them. You might have success depending on how they set it up. I've had success using the Twitch profile in some software. If you can set a custom server and stream key, because Twitch does it that way and not via OAuth. So that might be worth a try. But that is most likely what it is. That custom RTMP is RTMP. And the other one is just enhanced RTMP does not work.
Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas is asking, would a gaming computer like this be adaptable as a media production computer? It has a really unique architecture with a link.
Jonas?
I think it's a funny case, but what I'll say is I see way too much things exposed. It might work for like corporate live streaming where you're always in a ballroom, but like I would be worried about dusk and exposure to the elements of that. And I tend to have my monitoring, so the monitor and screen separate from where my computer is, because most likely you have people who don't like being screamed at by their computer, looking at screens, and then you want to put all your engines somewhere else. But like, in broadcast, we set up below trucks, in the elements, in like some alleyway that was dusty. Like, I would want to make sure I have like good filters and I'm protected from the environment.
Courtney?
Yeah, I'm kind of against all-in-one type computers, and this one that he has the link to is basically kind of a gaming computer with a screen and an open back, as Jonas was talking about, where the fans are, and it'll hold a full-size RTX board in there. But the problem is room for expansion, and anytime you go with an all-in-one here, if any one thing goes down, your whole computer goes down, and you can't do any work. So, if the screen goes on the fritz, or if your internal hard drive goes down, it's hard to get to replace it. I'd rather go with an outboard array of drives and, storage in the outboard lands with an NAS and just internally a lot of RAM. But it could be used. Most gaming computers, more likely desktops, are better for media production than anything else.
And if we want a real opinion on this, I guess we're going to have to wait for Jonas to get one, because they're selling it in Europe right now, but not the U.S. So we won't see it quite yet. If you are looking into it and you're thinking, man, that's a really good price, remember, this is the case. So this is a bring your own components kind of deal. Next question.
This one is from Jacob Goodnight in Indianapolis, Indiana. For Sony cameras that don't support LUTs, like the ZV-E10, what picture profile or creative style do you recommend as a starting point for insert studios? I find portrait, saturation +1, to be most flattering.
Jason?
It might be. I had to check my notes on this. It's been a while since I've done this. So if you go to picture profile and you modify the one that's based on the movie gamma, color mode is Pro or Rec 709 Matrix, black level at 0. Middle +7 will shift your shadows ever so slightly, which is pretty good for talking heads. And then you have a knee that you set to manual. You start at 80% and your slope is at -2. Saturation, -2 to -3, and detail -3 for kind of like this less video look. The other one that I wrote down was creative style neutral, contrast -3, saturation -2, and sharpness -3.
And I have, when I can, I still, even if it's a camera that doesn't support the LUTs, I'll put a just like a micro converter as just a little LUT box in the chain so that I can still shoot a color card, make my own LUT, and then I have the ability to tweak it without needing to run behind the camera and hit all the little buttons. I always mess it up when I try to get up and down. The LUT box is the way to go. Next question.
Coming to us through the QR code from Alexander Carr in St. Paul, Minneapolis, USA. Which AI platform, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, do you primarily use and for what specific purposes? Within each platform, which particular model do you prefer, e.g. GPT-4o, O3, Claude 3 Opus, Gemini 1.5 Pro, and why?
Courtney.
Well, just for general use, I like to use Perplexity, the little plugin in Chrome, so I can just pop up there and tell it what to use, and it comes back using a variety of the LLM engines. So that's cool. And I like to use, I've gotten to where I'm really lazy and just type a question into the Chrome URL line, which it then hands over to Gemini Cricket, and Gemini will then answer and give you search results below that. So you have your AI response first, followed by search results with links. So that's kind of handy to have. It's AI take on anything you type in there. You can just type a question in and instead of a search query, and it will answer you or create a picture, even that. So that's one solution. And I've started using Copilot because it's available on the Windows side everywhere, and it does everything, and you can get it for free basically on versions of Windows 11 without paying for it. There are limitations, but it's there, and the amount that I use, I don't use that much image generation or text generation in AI, so I'm usually below the cutoffs.
Alex?
I use Midjourney, of course, for images. I'm playing with the Midjourney video stuff. It looks pretty good, but it still needs some work. I'm also using LTX for some. I'm playing around with building a music video, so I'm using LTX to do that. Using Runway and Kling for video, and then I'm using Meshy to convert images to 3D models. It does an okay job, not incredible, but I'm playing with it. And then Claude for coding, and then I use ChatGPT as kind of the general. I actually have it on my phone as Janet from The Good Place, so I just push the button and I go, Janet. And I ask a question, and so anyway, so it's a funny. I felt like it was better than Start Chat, and so I just push the button and say Janet, and like to give you an example of how I use it, I was in a theater yesterday, and I'm trying to convert a 12G signal to 3G to multiple 3G signals because I'm using two quads for stereo left and right eye, and so I built a video with left and right eye in quad 1 and quad 2. And I wanted to go 12G out of my playout into a 12G to 3G, and then just grab the two quads. But when I plugged it in, all I got was the whole signal copied 4 times. And so I just Janet, I was like, I got 4 signals. I got the same signal going out of all 4. I'm on a 12G to 3G converter. I didn't even tell her what it is. Tell ChatGPT what it's. I got a 12G to 3G converter, and I got 4 out. 4 of the same image out, but what I want is quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. And ChatGPT came back, well, with the black magic, I can tell you what the pins are, but if you just look at the bottom of the box, you'll see a guide to what the pins have to be, because I told it I didn't have the front panel. And sure enough, I looked at the bottom, and there was the guide. But just I have very little patience for searching for things. Now, I'm still figuring things out on my own, but I'm like, I'm not going to go start looking around. I'm definitely not going to Google, like, trying to find the manual and then download the manual and then go through the manual when I could just get it that quick. And so I use it a lot that way. My family probably also eats probably 3 to 4 meals a week from ChatGPT. Like, it's not like a kind of a thing now. It is I have this, and this, and I want something good, and ChatGPT will just make, and I want to spend 30 minutes on it. ChatGPT will just make up a meal that is a solid meal every single time.
Chris?
You know, what's weird, Alex, is I had the exact same problem yesterday. I was doing the exact same thing with the
12D to 3D, pulling the two
Thursdays
quadrants.
and my Thursdays are almost identical. What I was going to say about I go back and forth between ChatGPT and Grok, and I use it basically just like I'm starting to go there instead of just Google to ask questions. It's interesting. I'm not into the whole image generation thing like you are, but I will say this, and it would be interesting to have a deep discussion about this. I think that it's my observation that ChatGPT and Grok are very naive.
They're book smart. It's all it is. Is that all AI is
they're
book
not
smart.
wise. What's interesting is you ask them a question. Yeah, you ask them a question and you go, and even in the context of something that is like newsworthy, and they'll go, well, there's no evidence of that in the news. I'm just like, that's my point. I don't want you to just regurgitate the news, which is probably all it has to do. I'm asking it for in my, and this is complicated, I'm trying to get 1 level or 2 levels deeper than just the news, you know? And the answers you get just feel very naive.
Well, and I think that the key though is how you ask questions. And I've learned that this is like, so I'll be interested in the news somewhere. Like someone posted something about Bulgaria's population dropping, dramatically. Like it's a dramatic problem. Like it's not like a little problem. And I just started asking ChatGPT about things about that. Like, so what happened there, and what does this look like, and are there any articles about this? And I get huge amounts of data, and suddenly I know all this in and outs of what happened in Bulgaria. So, but the point is that if you ask pointed questions about details around it, you're having ChatGPT deliver context, not trying to have it give you any answers.
That's good pointer.
Jonas?
So I'm going to try to make this really quick. I have Claude mostly for development of website prototypes, because their artifact handling is still the best. Plus, what I'm showing here right now is their research. Both Claude and ChatGPT, most of the time, if I have a topic that I need information on, I use both of them nowadays mostly, especially like for marketing, or if you're searching for clients or need to like compare your product to other products. I just give it my product brief and I say, here's 10 competitors, search all their websites. And it's crazy. Like, this will not end for the next 5 minutes, and it's gonna search like thousands of websites. Same with ChatGPT. I mostly use it for non-coding tasks. I find that Claude is the best for anything with code and tech. But like, for example, I was in Vienna and wanted to plan that out. I told it, hey, here's all the things my girlfriend wants to do. Fit that into 3 days. And then it built me a plan. Funnily enough, it even wrote me a little website with a Google map where like all the points, what you wanted to do and when we can do that was. So that was really nice. Then the other thing that I use is bolt.new. That's like one-shot app builder. And this is where a lot of the larger prototypes start. They say, hey, build me a platform to do this. This is really great for like design work and getting a first thing into people's hand. And then what I use most of the time now is t3.chat, because they now added search as well, so you can add search grounding to the models. But if I show you what all models I have access here, I can just experiment really well with all the different ones. I can say, oh, I wonder what Llama would say to that. I wonder what this would do, what that would do. They also have the image gen now, and it's only like $8. And like compared to what I pay for the rest, that is pretty cheap. And then the last one is I also use Claude Desktop because I'm starting to do some MCP work. And for example, I gave Claude the ability to control my vMix. So instead of clicking the preview button, I could write a long text about how I would like Claude to click the preview button, and then Claude click the preview button. And then Claude Code, which is a CLI. That one hurts a little because like it's easy to spend like hundreds of dollars while it just like reformats your whole project. But I use it I always tell the AI, here's my project, and now roast it. Tell me all the security vulnerabilities, everything that sucks UI-wise. Have to be strong. It's honest with you. And it might tell you some mean things, but it's really nice and good for that purpose as well.
Another thing that I've been doing a lot lately is using whatever deep research credits I have for the month in ChatGPT, and I'll say deep research something. Like for instance, my in-laws' air conditioning unit was having issues, and they needed a technician in the city of Chicago, which I do not live in anymore. And so I went to deep research and said, hey, I need you to compare HVAC service companies who offer yearly maintenance agreements, who are in servicing this specific zip code within the city. I'd like you to compare reviews on Google Reviews, on Yelp, on Angie's List, and scour them for any red flags that might make them untrustworthy. Like if they speak this language, that's a plus. And then it spent like half an hour on it, which I would have spent reading all the reviews, which is great. And then at the end of it, I said, okay, now give that to me in a table and lay out all the options and let me compare them across visually. And I could do that with ChatGPT, but I wouldn't necessarily do that with another service right now. So that's where you've really got to take a look at how, like, be very intentional about, I'm going to use this specific service for this specific thing, and get creative. Because at the end of these, you can now say things like, okay, I want to download that as it won't do Pages documents, which is frustrating, but I'll say, download that for me as a Word document. Download that for me as an Excel sheet. And then when I get it into an editable form, a highly editable form, then I can clean it up, make it nice, and then give it to my in-laws and say, okay, hey, here are the 5 phone calls that you need to make. And so translate that to your specific instance or problem, and then I think you're onto something. You can ask questions 24/7 at askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. It's fast and easy. Nothing to sign in to, nothing to sign up for. Just go to askofficehours.global, put in your name, put in your question. We'll get to it over the next couple shows. Next question.
This is from me, Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. I want to send 1080 to Zoom while recording 4K in vMix. Concerned about computer resources. Option 1, vMix downscales to Zoom. 2, Zoom downscales. 3, join Zoom with another computer on the 10G network and send vMix via NDI. Any other ideas?
Jonas?
The best idea is 3, because then you take the load off that computer. One thing to keep also in mind is if the Zoom is deliverable, there's different algorithms and there's different ways to scale down 4K to 1080p. If you use something that uses a cheap algorithm that like is computationally low, you might get a really unsharp picture. But if you use like a typical downscaling, then that won't happen. So that's something to also keep in mind. Generally, I don't like to give conferencing applications like Zoom and especially Teams a frame that's larger than what they're built to handle. I found it just weird, like performance issues. What I would probably do is I would do it in vMix and use the external output and scale it down in there to 1080p if you have to do it all on one computer. OBS also can do that pretty okay because you can scale it there. But once again, keep in mind what scaling algorithms you use. With OBS, you have a bit more control over that. But I think your idea of doing it on another computer is great. I probably would just SRT it up to the cloud and do it all in the cloud, but that's just me.
Guy?
It's funny. Yeah, thanks for summing that up. The way that I do it is a little different. I go hardware just because that's a huge load on the computer. And what you want to do is you want to keep in mind where those files are going to wind up. So if you start at the end in mind, you have a 10 gigabit network. How are you going to edit those files? Because what happens is with the vMix records, if you bring those into Premiere, those files sometimes don't do what you think that they're going to do. It's not an easy workflow, whereas something like the HyperDeck, it works amazing. So I have my HyperDeck set up right here with the DeckLink Extreme, and so I'm able to record in 4K. The load is off my computer. It's all self-contained. It's buttoned up, and that way I could see visually that how much time remaining is on that drive. Because the worst is to forget to be to have good file management and have that drive overfill while you're live on a show, and now your main machine's taking you down because of a record, because of a storage mishap. So I like to segment things, and like Jonas said, kick out NDI via the HD version. Let vMix do that. It's easily already doing it. I mean, it's something that it's lightweight. You could watch Task Manager and see what these resources are doing to your computer. So you could try it a couple different ways, but again, start with the end in mind and try sample files across and see if the color fidelity is there for what you want to do.
Next question.
Brett Wigglar in Western Australia asks, the show looks different today. Different scenes, layouts, displaying the panel. What software and workflow do you have in play for this episode?
Alex?
I think there's just a lot of us. So there's a couple looks that you have. So there's once you go over 6 of us, of the panel, because we're pretty much the only show I know of that has this many panelists that can scale up to this many panelists. I think we have 11 panelists here today. You notice how nice and clean it works because we understand how to do that. But generally, a lot of our panels are a little bit smaller, and so you can put them into the general super source pattern that is within. I think it's up to 8 that we can do within just the Blackmagic super source. But as soon as we go over 8 panelists, then we switch to a different, just showing the panel. I think that's what you're seeing is different. Everything else, as far as I know, is the same. So it's just that and I believe that we're using a multi-view for that. So it goes into a up to 16 multi-view that we can show there.
Chris?
Just want to make an argument for people like the wide shot, Alex. People like the wide shot.
We're using the wide shot.
Next question.
More.
Here's one from Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona, USA. Guy mentioned ShadowPC for affordable cloud computing a few weeks back. Can you talk more about how you use ShadowPC and what it could be used for with remote production?
Guy?
Yeah, I'll start with the downside of it. So you can't open up ports on it. So that before we go anywhere, the major thing about AWS is that we can open up all these different ports and have control. So if we want to send something like SRT up, we can. So I'll start with get that part out of the way. The pricing's just amazing because for $54.99, you can fire up a vMix machine. So you can go get a vMix trial, install it on this $54.99 machine. It's got a 3070 in it. And if you're just doing things like Zoom, you can join that Zoom call with vMix 28. You can mix match. You can cut shows because it's self-contained. You don't need the NDI other machines to be accessible on a network. So that's the downside as well, is that the way that we set up things in the cloud generally is we're going to have an encoding machine, a cutting machine, another machine that's ingesting. So you can't do that with this. For simple shows, though, you can pull it off, and it's a decent machine, but be aware that they can turn it off, and they will turn it off if you go idle. So there are some downsides and some caveats to this. You look at Paperspace or some of the other providers out there, and if you're getting serious about this is a good get your toes in the water and know that it's somebody else's machine, especially if you have a Mac and you want to play with a PC app. This is a great way to get started because it's a pretty powerful machine for $54.
Jonas?
Yeah, I would also say there's a lot of disadvantages for if you want to use it in production, like the turning it off, port restrictions that come from the typical things with it. What I'll also say is if you use vMix in the cloud in AWS, yes, it's more set up the first time, but you can also get a lot of usage for $50 on AWS. And this makes sense if you do like a lot of it, but then you can't do 24/7 on it because it will shut you off. There's also the alternative. If you want to just have something that restreams, you can like go to OVH or Hetzner and rent the server there and then use that server so you can take in an SRT and send it out to RTMP with something like Restream. There's Restream from Datarai, which is an open source tool that you can use. That way you don't have the load of like having a full-on Windows machine. What I would say, what we do use single machines for is especially that, like having an MCR where you send SRT to that then sends RTMP off of there. You can use OBS as well on that just for that method. But that's what we mostly use, single systems in the cloud.
You can hang out with Office Hours on the weekends. There's a catch, though. It's members only. We don't have jackets, but there is a login. So if you want to hang out with us on the weekends, Saturdays, we have another episode of Q&A. And then on Sundays, it's a little bit different. It's an introspection show. So we talk about the industry, talk about Office Hours. If you're interested in that, go to officehours.global/join. There will be a link in the email on how to hang out with us on the weekends. Next question.
Here's one from the QR code from Kent Kuhalski in Madison, Ohio. Is there a good remote rig setup for using a camcorder Yolobox for graphic ads and LiveU? Any recommendations on a good monopod to walk around with the gear?
Bill?
This is always going to be a balance because the more complex your system is, the heavier it gets. And for me, in the last part of your question, monopods get to be difficult when you have a lot of gear to put on top of them. I love monopods, don't get me wrong. But I'm always, if you're going to do serious streaming from a remote show floor or something like that, I've always been a proponent of using some sort of a cart on wheels to get around with because you just end up getting more and more stuff as you go. If you're looking for good quality monopods that can handle a medium-sized load of things and do a good job, Siri, S-U-R-A-I, something like that, is the model that I used to use. And I'd look specifically for the spread of the feet on it, because a lot of monopods have inadequate feet and they're still very tippy and tilty. And the last thing you want to have is a monopod get jostled and knock over when it's holding your expensive camera or streaming stuff. I have to admit that after the course of doing a lot of stuff on convention show floors, I've gotten down to the point where I don't take anything but an iPhone, and I have a $9 Amazon Basic monopod that is incredibly lightweight. The reason I try to do this, and you can't do full-scale streaming, but the less load that you go, the more agile you are, the more you use it, and the better shots you get. The more stuff I put on a cart or on any kind of support on a show floor, the more restricted I feel about the kind of shots I can get. You're going to be restricted if you're trying to do live streaming from a show floor. That's just the way it is. But I try to find something that's right for the kind of result I want to get. It's a hard choice.
Jonas?
I would use your camcorder is fine. The one thing that worries me is you haven't mentioned anything about audio. Keep that in mind. I then personally, I don't like the Yoloboxes. I use the Magewell directors. I use the Director Mini for a lot of my IBC and ISE coverage. And the cool thing is it just pops onto the hot shoe mount of your camera. You put one HDMI in. If you need a second camera, you can send that in over RTSP or the phone app. And then that can send out. And the latest one, the Director 1, also has LTE and can do bonding through Speedify. So that's a simple, cost-effective solution to get started. Then a LiveU could be an option. But if you do use a LiveU, I would probably like just do the LiveU and the camera and then do the HTML overlays either in the LiveU server or like use the cloud or a local system where you can pull that feed out and then do the HTML insertion there. So you don't have to deal with that on ground. One thing to also keep in mind with the LiveU, you might need to use DataBridge if you need to get any connectivity to control that HTML. So what I would probably use or have used a lot is like a GH5 because I have that, put a Magewell Director Mini on it and then use a Peplink for bonding. And that has generally worked really well because it also allows my remote team to get access to it. And if you need a smaller camera like the DJI Osmo, little cameras are also really great because you can plug them directly into the Director Mini and stream with that.
Alex?
It just depends on how far you want to go. So there are very simple ways to do this. One of the things that I've been playing with is doing something as small as an iPhone. A lot of people have seen me kind of run through that. I just worked on a project where someone was using an iFootage. I haven't bought this yet, but I'm close. This is the iFootage Cobra 3, and it has a foot pedal to allow you to lock its position here. Now, it's a bit more expensive than most of the other ones. It extends pretty high. It's got huge feet at the bottom, but you can kind of set it at angles pretty quickly, and it's probably the one that I was the most impressed with that I've seen as a monopod. One of the things that we've gotten into using a lot when it comes to this kind of roaming coverage is some kind of easy rig. There's a variety of different models of them, but they're easy rigs. It's a body pack that has a pole that goes up over your head and hangs down, and the camera becomes kind of weightless, and so it really extends how long someone can do something, especially, and keep them roaming through it. I do agree with what's been said before, is that try to do all the graphics and everything else somewhere else in the cloud at another location. It's too much to do on site unless you have a home base somewhere that someone else is managing it. You're just going to end up with a lot of what I would call mental commas. There's a lot of you're trying to figure out how to do too many things at one time. So get somebody to help you with that, and do that insertion somewhere else. I'm a big fan of. I know I've done both the cart thing and the handheld thing. I'm a big fan of the handheld thing because I feel like it feels more energetic, and I feel like you can get the places that you can't get to otherwise. And so the thing that we just used for this type of thing was a Ronin 4D on top of a Easy Rig, and that is the best solution. Not the cheapest solution, but the best solution that I've used to date. So the problem with Steadicams is that you have a time limit on how long the operator can last. With an Easy Rig and a Ronin 4D, it's hours. With a strong operator, and so now you can wander around. You've got this smooth motion. The chicken head is moving up and down. You can get it into places that you can't get otherwise. And that, along with a LiveU, is a pretty lethal combination. We've also done ones where we connect them to Zoom, because there is a wireless connection from the 4D, to a receiver, and then you can just put another monitor receiver on the rig, and now someone can talk to someone on Zoom, with that, and that's the best connection that we've created so far.
For a couple months a year, you can probably anchor it in the snow. I mean, Madison, Ohio, they get like almost 6 feet of snow a year. It is incredible. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I'm excited to try the Ronin with the Easy Rig. I've been on a couple events lately where the company that I'm working with, we have one of those, and it's always cool to hear over comms, go Ronin, and then it takes off. And I'm looking at my PTZs versus his footage, and it just looks so amazing as it comes up onto the stage and follows people around. And he's pretty strong for being able to run on this thing all day. So I'm curious if we do like a 3-day NAB, if we're going to be able to, not exhaust our operator, because, like on a Steadicam, a lot of people will follow around with a rig, something like this kind of cart where you hang it up when you want to take a break. And this is a great thing to have when you are on site, like, batteries, things get heavy after a while. If you're doing a multi-day event, if it's just like you're going to the farmer's market for a few hours, then yeah, you can just, have some beefy biceps and
I think this is the argument for why you want to do you want to have multiple things, more than one way of covering it, more coverage. Think folks that are off site doing like what we do, which is, people. So that way and all of those things, having a mix of 2 or 3 different modes that you're in when you're doing all day coverage is absolutely critical. You cannot rely on, to your point, Guy, you cannot rely on one camera, no matter what it is, all day. It either gets slow or it gets, just very hard. You can keep it much tighter. They're much more useful if you've got multiple crews, multiple formats, multiple things that you're kind of moving in and out of that kind of create the larger piece, even if it's just time lapses for a minute or two while you reset things.
Yeah, at the last Cinegear event, we had 2 cameras on the cart, and we had a wide shot and a close-up, so that way we could go tight and we can go loose, and then we backhauled that signal up to Seattle, and then I was able to put the graphics in, so we actually did, what do they call that on the iPhone, where you have like a tracker, Omar sent me a link, and I could now see his little dot flashing and give the viewers the actual GPS, map overview of which studio he was in and where he was at. So I was cutting back and forth between the show map, which showed all the vendors, and the overhead satellite view, which was really cool. So that's what I love about this group, where I was just pushing to figure out how to do this best and what the viewers like and enjoy and what gives them a better experience. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more.
Bill?
Just a really quick note, if you're going to be doing a lot of remote camera work, one of the things I did early in my career, and I was so happy that I did, was start working out with dumbbells for upper body strength, overhead curls and iron crosses and things like that. You just really need an upper body that is very well toned if you're going to be out lugging a camera around or lugging remote equipment around all day at a convention. It's extremely wearing. So your conditioning becomes critical. You look at some of those Steadicam operators, they tend to be very well built in the upper body, and boy, that helps you out.
If you're finding office hours valuable and you'd like to keep helping us push the envelope forward, there are a couple ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our channel, or you can volunteer as well. We've got volunteer opportunities at officehours.global/volunteer, both during the live show and around it. And finally, there's officehours.global/donate, and you can contribute to us financially. It helps us keep going. So just head over to officehours.global/donate. We appreciate all the support. Next question.
Next up is Tlaloc Lopez Waterman in Brevard, North Carolina, currently trying to build an iPad app. Heard what you said about Claude. Will it work for Swift? Is it expensive?
Jonas?
Yeah, I would say while I saw this, ask Claude to write me a little Icecast app to do the office hours stream in Swift. So it wrote me all the code. Then I told it, hey, please, I have no idea about Swift. Walk me through what to do. And then it's like, okay, please arrange the 4 labels and buttons in code like that. So I think that works really well. The other thing that I like for prototyping apps is, like I said, Bolt.new, I gave it the same app. I'm like, build me a mobile app that plays the Office Hours Global Icecast stream. I had to give it the URL, but now I have a working app here, and I have it on my phone. I can even play it there and create a horrible loop. And it even works on my iPad. And all of that just within the 5 minutes since I read this thing. So I would say if you don't have if it's not a video or really intensive app, I would try Bolt.new, which uses React Native and especially Expo under the hood. And then they even have a little tutorial here about, hey, let's get your app on the App Store. So yeah, I would give that a try.
Another thing that's really slick is if you have the ChatGPT desktop app, you can plug that into right into Xcode. So you can, while you have Xcode open, say, make this ChatGPT conversation work with Xcode. Then it's able to see all of the code on the document that you currently have open. And I'll see Jonas says, I don't know a lot about Swift, and raise it to, I don't know a lot about programming in general, but I was able to, it's not a very complex app, but I was able to write an app to do a thing that was a couple thousand lines of code, and there's a Python library that it imports that is embedded in the app, and all that stuff is now running on a Mac or an iPad, and I don't,
Can you tell them what it is? It's great.
So what it does is it takes an equirectangular HDRI or an EXR image, and then it takes it and it maps it onto the faces of a cube. And this is to replace the environment text reflections that are default in Motion. But here's the thing. Motion doesn't let you actually load custom ones. So what the app does is it takes your image, it creates 36 files and all the different resolutions for all the different faces with different levels of Gaussian blur. And then at the end, because Apple won't give you permission to do this right in the app, it opens up like the motion.app package, digs into the support files, and then says, okay, copy the files that we just made into the support file, restart Motion, and now, parking lot instead of being parking lot is, Davos.
That's awesome.
It's so cool. And it's just instant. Yeah. It would be great if Motion actually did that, but CJ's made a fix. So
it was very fun.
Yeah,
but awesome. Little utilities like that, it's amazing what you can do with a little bit of idea. Next question.
Rafat Al-Sayed in Toronto is asking through the QR code, which setup is better for 10 classrooms with PA, Zoom, and cameras? One mixer per room or one central mixer? Also, what mixer do you recommend? Many thanks.
Alexander?
Oh man, it really depends on what your budget is specifically. But with that many rooms, I would probably put. I mean, you're going to have cameras in every room. You're going to have microphones in every room. So I would probably put a digital mixer inside of every single room. You could also. There are other ways of approaching this too. If you had, for example, like a server rack where you wanted to locate all of the computers, you could put a rack mount digital mixer in there, and there's lots of companies that make stuff like this. And then basically, if you had Wi-Fi access points in every room, you could give each room a tablet that could remotely control the mixer. So for example, like the Yamaha series of digital mixers, they have an app for installers called Provision Air, and the nice thing about that is that Provision Air allows you to build a custom interface that is incredibly simplified, and it can have as many or as little controls as you'd like. So for example, I could build a custom interface for an iPad that literally only has one button for the on-off switch for that person's mic and maybe playback volume slider or something like that. So they have all sorts of solutions for that, but it really depends on what kind of budget. So we'd probably have to have a discussion about what the budget is to figure that out. But my first instinct would be to just put a mixer in every room, because then that way they can control it and you can probably keep the cost down doing it that way too.
Alex?
What we've done in the past for these kind of multi-rooms are X32s. This is where an X32 works really well. It's rack mountable. It can deliver everything back to us in Dante. We can control it remotely over the network. And so it may be out of your price range. You got to let us know what that is. We've used smaller things, but that has been the one that has been the most successful for us. You do want to have it be individual, but you want to be able to have somebody log in from anywhere and be able to make fixes as needed.
Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez III in Washington, D.C. is asking, what is Dante Virtual Soundcard and how would you use it?
Alexander.
Okay, so real quick. So Dante is a multi-channel audio protocol over IP. So it takes your audio, which obviously starts off in the analog world, converts it to digital bits, and then goes out to your network. The cool thing about it is that it can be accessed on any device that's on your network. Dante Virtual Sound Card is exactly what you would think it is. It is a sound card that's a piece of software. However, you have to start with a piece of hardware. So, for example, it could be anything that has a Dante chip in it. So, for example, like in my setup here, I am running Dante Virtual Sound Card, and I'm using a Yamaha DM3, which is the clock. So it's important to have one piece of hardware on the network that is the primary clock for the Dante signal generator. So it can be something like that, or any mixer that has Dante, or something as inexpensive as one of these little Audinate Dante Avio devices. This is their USB-C audio interface, which is only a couple $100. You can connect that to your computer. That'll be your clock. And then Dante Virtual Sound Card it actually defaults to, I have it installed here, sorry, and I didn't have it called up here because I have Dante controller here. But it basically, Virtual Sound Card is a 64 input, 64 output virtual sound card audio interface, and you can route anything in and out, and then you would use the domain controller here, or sorry, Dante controller. And it's basically like a matrix, and you have all your sends and receives, and you can just patch everything in and out, and that's basically what it is.
Guy?
Yeah, Alexander summed it up really well. The one thing I will add is on this last gig, I brought 7 of these USB versions down to LA for this gig. And the reason why is you don't have to install that software on every single one of the laptops. If you present one of these $170 devices, it shows up as just 2 in, 2 out, which makes it incredibly easy to get USB audio in and out of a computer. So you don't have to install that software. You can just go direct machine to machine or machine to recorder, one to many. So I'd look at all those options. And like Alexander was saying, they come in all different kinds of formats where you can do, like, this one's a 2-channel analog output. So you can have outs, you can have ins, you can have Bluetooth ones. There's all kinds of cool stuff.
And we'll sneak in one more question.
This one's from Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois. How are local USB devices controlled when using a cloud or virtual computer over a network, especially when they need to send signals to connected equipment?
Jonas?
So there's a couple of things to note here. There's solutions like Virtual Here, or most of the remote access solutions like Splashtop, Parsec, NiceDCV do have a feature called USB remotization, which allows you to pass through your USB. What we found most of the time, it is not a great idea to do that. And what we do is we have a small piece of software locally where the USB is plugged in that then either takes actions based on the USB signal. So like in case of a StreamDeck, we use Companion Satellite or Companion to then talk to the cloud. The reason for that is that the USB protocol is not something that is built for latency. Like, it does not know how to function if the response takes 100 milliseconds. It might, and you might be lucky, and it might be fine, but that's not what it's built for. It's also not built for, like, suddenly losing packages. The other thing to keep in mind if you use something like a StreamDeck is it's really just a big screen. Like, it's, I think it's like an HD screen on DXL. I don't want to send that bandwidth through like a USB protocol over the internet. So I would say most of the time you have a form of taking the USB signals, putting them into IP, and then sending them up or pulling them down. There are solutions like Virtual Here that a lot of people use, like especially for annoying software vendors who can't figure out how to do virtualized licenses and require you to use a dongle. Not that I'm bitter, but that is one of the use cases that you still will see from time to time, but I wouldn't want anything critical running through USB remotization.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to our producers for asking such great questions today. Keep us on our toes and help us kind of expand our perspective. It's like every day. We can't do it without you. So we had a couple more than we had time for today, so we had to send some back. If you were in Makana, they'll be in your notes. If you asked over the QR code, then we'll work those in starting in on Monday. To the panel for being here today, what a rock star. All like just great panel. Spoiled me as a host. It's a privilege to spend an hour getting smarter. Thanks to all of your live experience that you're bringing in today. Just incredible. And finally, thank you to our back-end crew. Not just working during the show, but around the show, keeping us organized. You're the foundation of everything we do. You're so appreciated. Thank you so much. It's flawless traversal today. If we would have had to do this in person, we'd have traveled 29,000 miles. That's 47,000 kilometers, 233 million bananas for scale. I'm seeing after hours.
I guess I have to go watch this Coca-Cola Star Wars ad.
Yeah, we got to bring it back tomorrow.
I was going to say,
you'll enjoy it. It'll be fun.
I can do the pip too, Jonas. Guy.
Oh, look at you.
Listen.
Who gave that to you? Like,
I would love to. Alex, watch the Star Wars thing. I want to see your response to.
And he's gone.
He's gone.
I want to know who this guy is dressed as. Is he dressed as the universe?
He's
the universe.
No,
The
that
Death
guy's
Star.
he's the Death Star.
Death Star. Yeah.
And then,
I see it. But
he
popcorn.
drops all the popcorn like the Death Star is blowing up. Hit play.
Great.
Hit play.
No, I'm going to go watch it. I don't want to see it through freaking Courtney's.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is another dumb Coke ad. And then I was like, this is fantastic.
It's so good.
It's so good.
There's so many little,